Well, you're all very welcome to another episode of Employee 360 with myself, Brendan O'Hara, and Mark Corkery. And we've got a great panel, an all-male panel today, which is a very rare thing on this particular podcast. But I assure you the quality is every bit as good. And it's about time us men started having a bit of men's lib. So that's where we're going on this program today. I've got Colm O'Brien with us. He's with WigWam Business Coaching. How are you, Colm?
I'm very well, Brendan. Happy New Year, one and all. Nice to be here.
Happy New Year. Paul Jacob, founder of Wicklow Hub and Remote Office Smart Storage. Paul, how are you? Great. You're on mute now, Paul, and that's your last warning on that, on mute.
Happy New Year to you, and hello to everyone.
And Jim Breen. Jim, you're the founder and executive chairman of PulseLearning. How are you, Jim?
Right now, Brendan, I'm doing very well.
And Mark Corkery, a happy new year to you, Mark. We've had 4 episodes previous to this, and we looked at the difference it makes to employees to work in a safe environment with an engaging community where they feel secure and have a clear path to achieve their goals. As we look into the new year, Mark, what else do you do for employees?
So great. First of all, welcome everyone to the podcast and a happy new year to everyone. So Brendan, from my experience, one of the best ways I see to improve well-being is to offer coaching to employees. So having created an environment where individuals can grow, you can now give your employees the skills to help themselves grow. And we all have heard of a well-known quote: if you give a person a fish, you feed them for a day. If you teach them to fish, you teach them to feed themselves for a lifetime. So for me, based on this quote, I believe if you coach your employees in various domains in their life, you give them the ability to be self-sufficient in all these areas.
Okay, so you help employees with their financial wellness, though. And are employees, well, are they well coached about finances, if we look at that in terms of coaching?
Yeah, sure, Brendan. Look, there's generally a lot of information out there about money and finances, but generally that's overwhelming. As a financial coach, you should help people to understand what they want to achieve, what they want to avoid, and you also help them become accountable. So I find usually when you set a goal, you have a future view of what you should look like, and when most plans fail, they fall down on the basis that you're not creating the proper next steps or process to achieve that goal. So for me as a financial coach, it really helps you to understand the process of achieving your goals and guide you through the transitions that ultimately lead to the transformations in your life.
Okay, so how do we go about coaching then? What would your take on that be? How do you coach? And is it natural for all employers to coach, and how do you do it?
No, look, I think coaching is a specialist skill. It's something that I've only kind of really got into myself over the last couple of years, because I think we all tend to try and tell people how to do things, whereas coaching is encouraging people to kind of dig down inside and find out what they need to do themselves. So I think it's more, there's a lot of listening in coaching, a lot of understanding and digging deep with a person without kind of jumping in and putting in your own views on everything. So I suppose if you look at the difference between being a coach or being a consultant, a coach is really helping you to learn how to do things, whereas a consultant will do it for you.
Okay. Well, let's go to the panel, and we've got great coaching experience to go to, and straight away let's do that. Colm O'Brien with WigWam Coaching. Tell us about yourself. Tell us about WigWam Coaching, and Colm, tell us more generally, really, about your take on coaching for businesses and employees.
Well, first of all, it's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this. And I'm making notes already. Thank you, Mark. And I think that's the key here, that we'll all learn from each other. I'm certainly no expert. I'm a bit of a reluctant coach, to be honest, right? My background, I used to manage Bewley's in Grafton Street. You all know that place. So back in the day, I wanted to be a school teacher, didn't happen, ended up in catering, ended up managing Grafton Street Bewley's, which is wonderful, great experience. So I was a franchise manager for them, then took on a Bewley's Cafe in Limerick. It failed, right? Celtic Tiger stuff and all the rest of it. And I wrote a book called Feeding Johnny. And the strap line to the book was how to build a business despite the roadblocks. I wrote a book on the journey because very little of it was planned. And what happened was people other than my mother read the book, which surprised me. And people began to ring me and say, do you see what you went through in chapter 4 or chapter 7 or whatever? I'm going through that. Would you walk me through it? So I ended up becoming what I refer to as a reluctant coach. And so WigWam is the latest iteration of that journey. The book was published in 2015. And so WigWam is an acronym. It stands for Wonderfully Inspiring Goals Weekly Accountability Meeting. Okay. And the whole idea, it's interesting to hear Mark talking about financial wellness. It's great. There's a great phrase in itself. So we everything, I think we probably all agree, evolves over time. We start with something. What is it they say? No battle plan survives first contact with the enemy. So we went out with WigWam with an idea, and the idea was to facilitate other coaches, because I'm not a bad coach, but I don't really want to be a coach, to be honest. And I've said this publicly. I'd much prefer to build a coaching business than be a coach myself. And so the whole idea was to give coaches, better coaches than I would ever be, a product and a brand that they could wrap their own skill set around and let them drive it on. And then what happened was, and you introduced me at the start, Brendan, correctly as WigWam Business Coaching. But in fact, what's after happening is it's turned into something else. It became, rather than B2B or B2C, it became H to H. It became human to human. And we got into very human conversations it's all group coaching we do. And there's power in the hive mind. We'll see it demonstrated here this morning. So it's evolved. So we've got sort of 4 pillars that we've latched onto now: health, wealth, relationships, and spirit. And the whole WigWam programs, and they are evolving, are wrapped around all of those together or each of them individually.
Okay, very interesting, very interesting. In terms of wrapping that around those 4 pillars that you've chosen, Colm, and I noticed you've got wealth in that as well. And I suppose just picking up on Mark's team, do you find that's a difficult area for people to grapple with? And I'm talking about employers now grappling with that for their employees. Is that your experience of that?
We're certainly not in the same league as Mark in terms of financial wellness and the coaching around that. WigWam, for now, appears to be where we're getting people to wake up to where they are in relation to each of those 4 areas. Mm-hmm. How is your health today? How is your wealth? How are you feeling about your wealth today? Mm-hmm. Can you pay the bills? Basically yes or no, etc. How are you feeling about your relationships today? And how are you feeling about your spirit? How are you feeling about you today? And it has been an evolution, but we're sort of 2 years old now, and as we enter 2022, those 4 pillars have become what WigWam is about. But we don't go to the depths that Mark, I expect, goes to, and nor do we want to. Sure. I think we sort of want to scratch an itch for people and say, okay, you now know you've got an itch that needs scratching, so why don't you go talk to Mark or whomever?
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me go to Jim Breen. Jim, tell us about yourself. Tell us about PulseLearning and your take on coaching.
Sure. So first of all, very interesting what's been said so far. So by way of background, I founded a company called PulseLearning back in November 1999. So over the last 22 years, PulseLearning has become a global leader in e-learning. We focus particularly on behavioral change. So we'd have clients like Google and Amazon, Facebook, KPMG, got clients all over the world. And a few years ago, we set up a division within PulseLearning focused specifically on well-being. And that brand is I'm Here. And I'm Here is all around focusing on giving people the courage, confidence, and clear skills. So clear stands for compassion, listening, empathy, acceptance, and being your real self, in order to signpost others to the help and support when needed. So we'd have clients like, for example, Intel or Woolworths or CISC or Falch Ireland or TLI or Intercontinental Hotel Group. And these organizations who have taken I'm Here on board now have a community and movement where it's okay not to feel okay. And it's absolutely okay to ask for help. So that belief that it's okay not to feel okay, and that behavior that it's absolutely okay to ask for help, means that, for example, within many of our clients, the utilization of help and support has trebled since I Am Here has come on board. Now that's significant because we know that the workplace is perhaps the last bastion of stigma around wellness. So if we can break that by changing beliefs and behaviors, then, it's a good day. It's a good day for the human, the individual, the team member. It's also a great day for the business. There's business benefit in this. Mm-hmm. So that's by way of background. I guess one of the things, we're here today on the 11th of January. I think it's a Tuesday, it could be a Wednesday. It's 2022. And, coaching is very different today than it was on the 11th of January, 2021. And it's very different than it was on the 11th of January, 2020. One of the big things is, as a coach, to really focus on meeting the person where they are right now. For example, putting you on the spot, Brandon, how much of the last 11 days have you spent planning about 2023 and 2024? Possibly quite a lot.
Well, I can tell you, Jim, I'm a planner, so I've done a lot. Yeah.
Good, and that's phenomenal, and that's fantastic. And it's not where most people are. Most people are just focused on getting through the now, which is understandable. Even on a personal level, I generally spend 3 months of the year. This 3 months of the year in Australia, and even to try and get away for a couple of weeks now, I find difficult because we're set. We are where we are. And to be planning ahead is difficult. There's so much uncertainty. So from a coaching perspective, I think one of the things is to meet people where they are. I think another thing that's really critical is, the person with the challenge needs to be doing 95% of the talking. And I think that's something, again, that as a coach, we need to remember. We need to remind ourselves of. I think the third thing is, apart from meeting people where they are, apart from allowing the person with the challenge to do 95% of the talking, I think we need to give advice sparingly. And give unsolicited advice never. And there's good reason for that. So the idea of, I sometimes call it the rat concept, I have a rat in my shed and I have a phobia about rats. You think you have a rat? Let me tell you about my rat. We tend to do that. And by the way, I've never heard a rat described as being a small rat. There's no such thing as a small rat.
I guess so, yeah.
So we all have. So I think it's meeting people where they are. It's allowing people with the challenge to 95% of talking. And it's being really careful about, there's a fine line between empathy and also telling your own story. I think it's really important that we let the person, share their story and only give advice when it's requested. Because often the time with coaching, if it's done really well, is the person figures out the solution themselves. And by asking the right questions, you allow the person, navigate that journey to what's the right answer for them.
Mm-hmm. Tell me, Jim, I mean, what you're doing is wonderful, as well as what Colm has described that he's doing as well. But tell me from your perspective, because you've seen the changes over the years, what difference is it doing to those big companies, the KPMGs and those, to have that kind of contact, if you like, with our facility or service for their employees? What difference is it making that you're seeing?
Yeah, it's really game changing. And again, it depends on what part of the world. Like I Am Here is now in 8 different languages. We're across 6 different continents. We have 850,000 members of the community across the globe. So you can appreciate, people in Macedonia will have a different mindset perhaps than people in Saskatchewan or people in Sarasota. It's all different, and you've got to allow for that very much. I think I also founded a charity called Cycle Against Suicide. And I set that up in 2012, and I was volunteered in it for 4 years, which was the deal. And in those 4 years, I got to meet with 40,000 students every year, mostly in Ireland, but sometimes students outside of Ireland. So Cycling and Suicide was very much focused on the island of Ireland. So you'd meet with, all boys schools, but like the class here today. Sometimes all girls school, co-ed. You'd meet with Northern Ireland Catholic schools, Protestant schools, integrated schools. You meet with rural schools, city schools, small schools, big schools. one thing you learn when you go into schools is every single school has got its own culture. And if you're tuned in, you'll be able to sense the culture within about 30 seconds. And you'll also be able to sense who are the caregivers within about 30 seconds. It's very, very obvious. And it might be the school principal or deputy principal. It might be the guidance counselor. It might be literally the caretaker. It might be a teacher. It might be a member of staff. It might be, you know, Betty in the reception that everybody goes to. What's really cool about working in schools is you can go in front of a class of 30 or a school of 2,000 and you can say, what would it be like? What would it feel like? What would it smell like? What would it taste like if everybody believed that it was okay not to feel okay in this school right now? And what would it feel like if everybody behaved in a way where it was absolutely okay to ask for help in this school right now? And when you look at students, particularly transition year students, and I don't know if you've anybody here on the call has got kids in that age. I think Mark's got some teenage kids. And, you know, students, like, their arms are folded at the start of any presentation. And it's very simple. It's, what do you have for me right now? When you ask that question, it unlocks things. And it allows people to think about what that means. Now, then you go to the likes of, you know, Intel or Fauch Ireland or Cisco, or like take Woolworths. They've got 200,000 team members, and of those 200,000 team members, 60,000 of them voluntarily have become I'm Here tribe members. Imagine an environment where there's massive, you know, staff turnover because it's retail, because it's seasonal, because it's part-time work, etc., and yet 60,000 of their team of 200,000 have voluntarily said, I'd like to become an I'm Here tribe member. I'd like to take the learning, you know, voluntarily, and I'd like that to become part of. Why? Because this belief that it's okay not to feel okay, and this behavior that it's absolutely okay to ask for help, is something that doesn't just impact somebody in their work life. The ripple effect is, and we get emails all the time, you know, we were able to share this with our kids, share it with our siblings, share it with our parents, share it with our extended family, share it with our club mates, share it with our friends, share it with somebody we knew that was going through a bit of bother. And as a result, they've now asked for help. And that's the game changer, Brendan. That's the light switch that goes on. Now that needs to be fed and fueled, but the impact is it's cultural, it's behavioral. And you know what Mark was saying earlier, you know, is absolutely on the button in terms of financial well-being. You know, that accountability that Mark spoke to is really, really important across well-being in general. So that's Brendan, the difference that I'm Here can make within an organization. But it's really, come back to what John was saying, it's really the human impact. You know, we speak about compassionate connection. It's almost like, again, from a coaching perspective, what fingerprint do we leave behind us right now on the person that's in front of us? What's that fingerprint like? And I can tell you, I've left the shittiest of fingerprints on people. You know, I've caused damage. I've been destructive. I've been, you know, uncaring. I've been the opposite of compassionate, the opposite of listening, the opposite of empathetic, the opposite of accepting, the opposite of being my real self at times. And you know, you need to accept that. There's also times where we get it right. And when we get it right, that fingerprint that we leave, it's really impactful. And it's the compassionate connection, the power of one is really powerful. And you know, I guess it was interesting just even learning, like, you know, to say, I really don't want to be a coach. I want to have a coaching business. It's a powerful statement because it's a statement of truth. And then within that coaching business, if you could have a number of people facilitated to leave the right fingerprints, that's magical. You know, that's a real gift. That's something, again, that, you know, as I'm getting older, I'm 51 now, I'm hoping that I'm leaving more positive fingerprints than negative fingerprints. And that's part of the journey, I guess.
That is powerful, Jim. Thank you very much. Let me turn to Paul Jacob. Paul, you're the founder of Wicklow Hub and also Remote Office Smart Storage. From your perspective, what do you see in terms of employees and coaching, the coaching need for employees?
it was really interesting what the guys were saying. They're obviously, you can tell that they're experienced coaches. I'm not an experienced coach. I'm the other side of it I'm an employer. I have two main businesses. My primary business, which is Smart Storage, we are the largest provider of understair storage systems in the world. Big man in a small field syndrome here. And we have about 75 staff across Ireland and the UK. And we provide our product primarily across Ireland and the UK, but have also provided it across the US. It's gone as far as the Falkland Islands. It's gone to mainland Europe and so on. So our product has kind of gone worldwide. And it's a business that I started in 2010 after I shut down a previous business that I had, which was a victim of that old Great Recession. So Smart Storage is my primary business, and we have 75 staff there. And then I've got a secondary business, which is Wicklow Hub, which is a remote office environment. So I suppose my experience with coaching and staffing really concentrates on having my own 75 staff at various different types of levels, from fitters and installers who are out on the road driving vans, who have been self-isolating since 2011 because they drive around in a van on their own all day long, and they have arguments with themselves in their head as they drive the van around, and discussions about different stuff. And then we've got sales teams who are office-based. We have operations and logistics teams. We've got finance teams. And we want them all to work together as a cohesive team. They all see themselves as individual little teams, but we actually want them to work as the Smart Storage team, and not sales versus operations or marketing versus sales, and to try and get that element in. And, you get these little battles that go on within a business. And one of the things that we did a number of years ago was we started to introduce coaching into the business for the managers. And it started with a really simple thing, which was we spoke to the managing teams about the values, their values, what was important to them. And we got them to write it down. We got everyone to write down their values. And when we put them all down, mine a lot of the times was stuff like, a bit like yourself, Brendan, I'm a planner. So I will start everything with, what's the plan? So what are we doing? What's the plan? How are we going to measure success on this plan? How is this going to work? So I will start with stuff like that. And I also regard effort as one of the most important values that I have. I can work with anybody if they will put effort in. But if they not putting effort in, I can teach them how to sell. I can teach them how to fit. I can teach them how to do some marketing. We can get that thought. But if they won't put the effort in, then the teaching is not really going to work. So effort to me would be something that would be really important. But when we began to sit down with everyone, with our team, and then get them to look at their values individually, the key element we got out of it is that when they were all down on a whiteboard across, is we said we then asked the team, can you now pick out a negative value? Is there anything up on the board that is destructive? And no was the answer. So we had people who their value was excellence. They want everything to be absolutely perfectly correct. Now you put that with somebody who has got a drive and ambition and wants to get stuff done. They see excellence as an obstacle because they say, you're holding me back. You're not giving me the room to do it. I need to get on and move on with it. However, if you pair them up and say, well, what I want you to do is excellence. I want you to make the driver a little bit more focused and to tidy up some of the little bits around the edges. And driver, I want you to pull the excellence and accept that excellence is what we aim for, but we're happy with good as well, or we're happy with good enough in order to get stuff finished. So the first thing that flourished out of it was that just by putting down individual managers, individual team members' values, they all saw that actually everybody is focused, has got the right values in the right area. And now what we just need to do is blend them and match them up properly so that you begin to use the team working with you and match the value up correctly. So, as I say, excellent, get him working with the driver. And the person with effort, get them working with the planner and so on like that. And you can all of a sudden begin to match that up. Mm-hmm. And that has worked really well in getting the teams to begin to work together and work as the smart storage team, as opposed to working as the marketing and the sales teams, mm-hmm. and getting them all working for the company's objectives and goals, and everyone getting aligned in that way.
Mm-hmm. Sounds great. Sounds great. Mark, we've heard from, I think there's three fantastic contributions there. Can you give us your takeaway on all of those?
Yeah, definitely. They're amazing contributions. Can I just read you a quick quote that I was looking at earlier on? It's from Zig Ziglar. It says, your vision will only become clear when you look into your own heart. Anyone who looks outside dreams. Anyone who looks inside awakes. No, I think it kind of relates back to what all of the people on the podcast were really saying, that, you know, you have to look at yourself first, listen to yourself. It goes back to what Jim was saying as well, is that when you're talking to somebody, you have to 95% of the time listen, because they have what they want within them and they need to get it out and to understand that. And I think one of the key things I'm getting here for everybody as well is that you have to be aware of your current situation. I think Colm said that, and Jim also said as well, that you have to understand where you are now, because you can look off into the future. And I think Jim said to you, you know, you're a planner, I'm a planner. I'm probably always guilty of looking 2 years, 3 years down the road. And one of the skills I'm trying to improve myself is actually being happy with what I'm doing today and trying to do something today that I was very happy with and was very positive for me. I'm always conscious of you can't, you can learn from what you did in the past, but you can't live in the past. You can be forever living in the future and thinking about what you could do. But really today is the main day that you can actually do something positive, that you can help somebody going forward. So I think even in Jim's idea there of it's okay to feel okay, one of the things I was looking at, and that's why I was interested in having a male panel on here today, is that my general feeling, especially in the financial area, is that males are just not good talking about whether it's their personal fitness or their health or their mental health or financial wealth. They tend to like to say not a lot, listen and say not a lot about it, as opposed to actually discussing it. And I think that one of the things, I suppose, whether it's through coaching or encouraging coaching in our businesses like Paul has done, and it was very interesting that the thing that opened up everything for Paul was people discussing their values, because at the end of the day, none of us really know each other's values until we express them. And when we express them, then we probably see that, look, all of us want certain values, and you know, it might be basic security or happy family, whatever those are. I think when people, as Paul's employees, saw them all together, you have common values. But then when you can actually try and match people's values together and bring people on that journey, but I think it would be amazing. I'm not too sure, but I assume Paul's workforce is probably majority male. And it's unusual probably to get people to sit down and talk about their values, which are an internal feeling. So I think those 2 points of being very conscious of being able to, first of all, see where you are today and being okay with that. And then asking yourself the internal questions, because Jim is quite right. As a coach, you know, you can inflict your own views on people. And, you know, we have both positive and negative views from our own past experiences, but every client will come out with their own level of explanation of what they need to do next to achieve their goals. So they're the 2 things that I really found interesting there. It's definitely about knowing where you are now and knowing internally what you want, you know?
Sure. And Colm, can I go back to you just briefly? WigWam at the moment and WigWam over the next couple of years in terms of your vision for it. Where does that
I'm sitting here in the company of giants in this industry. So, WigWam is just a startup. My day job was, until COVID struck, a school lunch business called Carambola. We employ about 100 people. And it's a national school lunch business. Myself and my wife have actually gone separate ways over the last number of years, as it happens. And she's now running that business, and it has suited me to step back and apply my efforts into WigWam. But just picking up on what Mark was saying, I reminded myself of a quote. A guy called Jim Stockdale. There's a book called Good to Great. I'm sure some of you would have read it. And in it, Jim Collins interviews this guy, Jim Stockdale, who was the highest ranking US naval officer to be imprisoned in the Vietnam War. He had this phrase which says, "Never lose faith that you will prevail in the end while simultaneously confronting the most brutal facts of your current reality." And really, that's about realizing where we are now. And, I liked what Jim was saying. He goes into a school and he says, what would it look like today, now, if we started to, what would it look like if? What would it smell like if? What would it feel like if? And that's about realizing where we are now. So the very starting point for all of us is realizing where we are now on the 11th of January, 2022, right? And being brutally honest with ourselves. And then figuring out, because I'm also a planner, right? I'm also a couple of years out into the future, saying, well, wouldn't it be great if? And our job then, as personal coaches for ourselves, and then as coaches in our work, whether it's with our employees or whatever it might be, is to help people also understand where they are now and give them some way of figuring out where they'd like to be. We call it a wonderfully inspiring goal around health, wealth, relationships, and spirit. What would you like it to look like? And we talk about your next roundy birthday. I'm the young fella there, Jim, only 51. I'm 59. Right. So my next roundy birthday is 30th of March, 2023. And so where would I like to be on my next roundy birthday? Where would I like to be on my 70th, my 80th, my 90th? But it starts with where are you now? You want to be there. Where are you now in relation to those, in our case, those 4 pillars? Get people to, make simple statements that they can begin to take action towards. And we all know too many people this time of the year jump too fast into stuff. Join the gym 6 days a week and it lasts till Valentine's Day. And it stops. So it's about taking small steps. Know where you are now, know where you want to go, take small steps and find somebody to be accountable to. And all of us here, I think we have somebody to be accountable to. We've got our colleagues that we work with that will hold us accountable to ourselves. So hope that helps.
Great. And Jim, are you hopeful for the future in terms of people actually making I am here, whether it's exactly I am here or another guise of it, an important part of work life?
Yeah, very hopeful. I suppose what, we kind of described ourselves, on this call a little bit, planners, non-planners, etc. I guess hopeful is an interesting place to be, because in a way, hopeful is not, and I'm a great fan of hope, but it's also not necessarily being present, Hope is kind of, thinking about the future. So I sort of like to look at it. I'm an engineer by background, so maybe there's some of the engineering coming out of me, but I look at it in the context of 4 things. So if somebody comes to me, Brandon, and they say, I've got a business idea, could you give me some guidance? I'm always happy to give people guidance. You'll contact me on jim.breen@pulselearning.com. I'm always happy to do that. What I'm questioning for, what I'm checking out are 4 things. Number 1 is, do they have clarity of vision? And again, a compelling vision, something that speaks to not a profitability or a revenue target, but an impact. So if we think about I am here, the vision is very clear. It's a workplace culture where it's okay not to feel okay, and it's absolutely okay to ask for help. So that's the first part, vision. The second part then is ambition, because sometimes people will have a vision that's really compelling, but actually they're not ambitious to realize that vision. They're almost, and there's nothing wrong with this, but they'd be happy to give that vision to anybody else and let them run with it. They're more ambitious to do something else. So the second part is that ambition. Do I actually really want to realize that vision? Because again, there's nothing wrong with it, but I could be very happy to just live with this idea and tinker with the idea. Nothing wrong with that, but it's not going to make shit happen. And when I say shit, I mean some highly impactful things, SHIT, some highly impactful things. So to make shit happen, you have to have vision and ambition. Then the third thing you need to have is capability. So what are the capabilities required to realize that vision through that ambition that you have? And those capabilities are a lot harder to define, and they're also a lot rarer than a vision or an ambition. So again, if we look at I am here, we say, are we clear on our vision? Yes, it's okay not to feel okay. It's absolutely okay for help. Do we have ambition? Yes. What's our ambition? Our ambition is to make this part of workplace culture as we go forward. Now, what about capability? So for us, capability is all about people. You know, it's all about people. It's all about people. And after people, it's then about people. And then after that, it's then about people. It's all people. So yes, we've got product, and yes, we've got systems, yes, we've got infrastructure. It's all about people. So part of my job is gathering together the best, most talented people across the globe to be part of I Am Here. And we've managed to do that in an amazing way so far. That's hard. The final part then, after vision, after ambition, after capability, is willingness. And that's the part that's the most rare of all. So again, if I'm speaking with people, or if I'm listening to people, if I've been asked to give some advice or give some guidance to people, I'm on the lookout for the willingness. And that goes back to maybe a little bit about what Paul said earlier. You know, the willingness to, it could be effort, right? Effort is a big part of it. It's also sometimes the willingness to let go, right? It's the willingness to get out of your own way. It's the willingness to recover. It's the willingness to rest. Now, these are the new willingnesses that I'm becoming more tuned into, because in the past, the focus was on, like within PulseLearning and I Am Here, tell you what our challenge is right now. Our challenge right now, and I find I'm on a number of WhatsApp groups with business leaders, and I hear and I empathize with the concern that people have about, you know, the hybrid working model and the virtual working model, and how difficult it is, and how they're feeling productivity has been lost, et cetera, and I empathize with that. Here's my challenge, and I don't think it's unique to me, but here's my challenge, our challenge. Our challenge is our team work too hard. Our challenge is to get people to actually, you know, take time off, to actually rest and recover. The willingness to do that. For example, one of the leaders in our team has brilliantly and amazingly taken today and yesterday off, straight after the Christmas, because Christmas was shit, right? Christmas was COVID, Christmas was broken teeth, Christmas was kids being sick. And she came back after Christmas and said, you know what, I need 2 days off. And I'm going to take them. And that's phenomenal, because that example that's been set, that willingness to take time off is phenomenal for us. And again, this is new. This is meeting people, to go back to what I said at the start, meeting people where they're at. And for those reasons, I'm very hopeful. But I guess it's because I can anchor back to a vision, an ambition, capabilities, and willingness.
Okay. Powerful stuff, Jim. And Paul, from your perspective, the year ahead for your team, are you looking to introduce any other coaching elements into that?
Yeah, well, we have an ongoing coaching program with our staff where we've brought in some external teams to do coaching with them, and that will continue. And so we started off by doing our values, and that was because, to be honest with you, there was a hesitancy and a reluctance among staff for coaching. When we discussed bringing it in, they were like, seriously, what are we doing here? Like our staff it's actually not all male. We have a lot of male, but actually a lot of our senior management are female. And a lot of people were uncomfortable to begin to talk about these items of values and so on. But once they began to open up and understand it, what we then is we introduced a coaching team and put individual members with different coaches that then began to develop out different things of what they wanted to achieve. And what we're trying to do is to try and get them to understand that the objective of the business is to succeed. And therefore, the success of the business means success for other people as well. and it's part of a journey that we go on. And I gave a simple analogy at the very start with our coaching when I did it, is that I described that our office is based in Newtown, Mount Kennedy in Wicklow. And I said that our journey is a bit like a bus journey. So picture it as a little bit of a bus journey from Newtown to Dunleary, okay? And it stops along the way. And people get on and get off at different stops. And so somebody gets on at the start and goes right the end to Dunleary. Some people get off in Bray, other people get off in Shankill, new people get on in Shankill and get off in Killiney. And this is the direction the business is going in, and this is the direction the bus is going in. Effectively, I'm the bus driver, and unfortunately, I don't get off unless there's a new bus driver. Which someday, maybe, fingers crossed, my shift ends. But what I said is one of the clear things is that this bus doesn't go to Dundrum. It doesn't go to Dundrum. So if you want to go in that direction, you're on the wrong bus. And that's where we kind of began to make things simple, is that, so we have to understand is the first question with the team is that, are you on the right bus? And if you're on the right bus, that's fine, you're going to Dunleary. But at no point, no matter how often you scream at the bus driver, he ain't going to Dundrum. It's not going to change direction. And it's not going to stop at the stops that you wanted to stop at if that's not the direction. And once we got people to begin to understand that element, then it was then really a case of putting the teams working with coaches and saying, okay, now we understand the direction that the bus is going in, and you guys have decided that you want to be on the journey. Now it's a case of how we line up your successes and how you measure success and how we measure success. And different people have different levels of what they regard success is. And within a business, we're happy with either. So if somebody comes in and wants a job and is happy with the job and really wants this job and that's as good as it is for me. And then you've got people who want to be their boss's boss and they want to develop career-wise. And you can facilitate them as well within this progression. But that does not undermine the other person who just is happy with the role and is happy to do that for a period of time. So I think it's about understanding that. And once we get them working with that, and that program will continue throughout the year. And that in addition to the hybrid working, the new working model that we're all striving with. For us, it's working really well. And we have developed a very simple approach to the remote working going forward, is that we are going to keep it. And we're not looking at getting people to come back into offices at particular times. So what we're kind of saying is that let's develop a list of activities that, of all the activities that we got to do per day, per week, per month within our various different teams. And then say, okay, which of these activities are better done at home or remotely, in person, or either way. And then we're beginning to group those and then saying, okay, now we know what activities, and now let's schedule those activities around what's it. So it's not a case of on Mondays, you have to come in, Brendan, into the office because Mondays is your Monday to come in here. So you have to get up and leave what you were quite good at doing remotely to come back into the office. We're saying, no, you come in for activities that are required in the organization. But one of the activities that we've now put in, which we would have never had as an activity in the company before, is actually just socializing. It's now an activity that we're kind of saying, because it's now, so the water cooler moment doesn't happen anymore in the office. So what we've now actually said is that we now have to put the water cooler moment down as an activity so that you get staff to do that. And how we do that is part of the challenge, is that how do you get the water cooler moment, so that informal chat, informal lunch that you have spur of between this person and that person happening. And that's one of the challenges, because I suppose people don't really see it as a task, but I think it's definitely a task in the new working environment.
Absolutely, absolutely. Mark, I'm going to give you the last word. We've had a very, very interesting podcast. Your thoughts as we close up.
Some fantastic contributions there. I learned so much from all those contributions. Just to maybe summarize a few things. Again, I think it's knowing where you are is essential to all parts of what we were talking about today. So we all have to do inner reflection and maybe get a bit of an accountability or talk to somebody to help us understand ourselves where we are. And listening and coaching, I think we kind of covered an awful lot of that off today. But for me, the coaching element, whether it's talking to a friend or talking to a professional or talking in a group, and having proper discussions and listening to people will help us, I think, throughout the year. I liked Paul's idea of the journey. We're all on that journey, and it made it kind of. I was thinking, yeah, we're all on different buses, and we probably have to realize which bus we're on. So that's kind of struck with me. And Jim's final thing, the clarity of vision there. Definitely, I suppose, like what we're trying to do here with Premier Life and our financial coaching is, we've been 20 years dealing with people with their financial situations, and inevitably they come in and say, I wish I did this, I wish I did that. And we're trying to make that impact. And it's very hard because people don't generally want to talk about their finances. So we looked at it as educating them and engaging with them and coaching, those three areas. So like for me, for the year ahead, it's about trying to enhance all those abilities to make life easier for people to tackle in the financial realm, which is my area. And hopefully as also that will help them throughout their lives as well. So it was a great podcast today. I really learned so much from everybody else.
Well, listen, that brings us to a close. I want to thank Colm O'Brien from WigWam Business Coaching, Paul Jacob, founder of Wicklow Hub and Remote Office Smart Storage, and Jim Breen, founder and executive chairman of PulseLearning. Thank you all very much. And as always, Mark Corkery of Premier Life. So thank you very much. Until the next episode, slán go fóill.